Hey guys, in this video we're going to be evaluating the unemployment rate. That's right, evaluating the unemployment rate, kind of making a judgment, really basically talking about the limitations of the unemployment rate. You see, the unemployment rate is supposed to tell us about the health of the labor market, right? It's supposed to tell us how easy it is to find a job. And the problem is that unemployment rate sometimes can be misleading. Now don't get me wrong guys, the unemployment rate is a good statistic, okay? Generally does give us information on the health of the labor market, how easy it is to find a job. But again, it can be a little misleading at times, okay? Now, to understand this, guys, I want you to understand the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually has 4 major types of unemployment rates that they put out there, okay? U3 has an asterisk by it because that's the one we teach in macroeconomic courses, and I have to say that is the #1 statistic that is communicated out there through things like the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times or any other type of news media generally focus on U3. What is U3? U3 is the number of unemployed over the labor force. And to be unemployed, you must be actively seeking a job. That is the key, right? So we've got the people who do not have a job that are actively seeking a job. That's your numerator, and your denominator is the labor force. Now you've got these other ones that I'm going to talk about at the end of the video. But again, this is the main one that we're talking about in a macroeconomics course, and that's the one we're evaluating in this video. Now here's the thing. The reason the unemployment rate, especially this U3 measurement, can mislead us is because of 2 groups of people, generally speaking, okay? And again, I'm gonna be very conceptual here, okay? One of those groups is discouraged workers. You see, discouraged workers are people who were unemployed, generally speaking, actively seeking, but now have come to the conclusion there are no good prospects out there and have stopped their search. They've given up on their search, right? They've become discouraged. And when they do, they drop out of that statistic, right? They're no longer unemployed because they're no longer actively seeking. Certainly they still desire work, but they have stopped searching for work. They, again, are discouraged. The other one is the underemployed. Now there's really 2 types of underemployed. One type of underemployed is you are working part-time and want to work more hours. The other one is that you are overqualified for your job. Okay, so those are our major groups that cause the unemployment rate, again, that U3 number, to be misleading, okay? And so that's what we're gonna focus on in this video. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look at 4 phases of the business cycle. Now, maybe I shouldn't say phases because the 4 phases is trough, recovery or expansion, peak, contraction, recession. What I'm really gonna do is chop up that contraction into 3 pieces, and then I'm going to add this 4th piece, which is the beginning of an expansion, okay? And I want to talk about this, and again, in a very conceptual way, just to get understanding. Now, let's take this first part right here. When you just enter into a contraction, so you've now been contracting maybe for a month, maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, something like that, okay? Now, what happens during this time period that might make the unemployment rate be misleading in how it's telling us about the health of the labor market? What might happen, guys, is that businesses cut hours. You see, businesses are reluctant to lay workers off. In the beginning of a recession, they don't want to lay workers off. So what might they do? They might cut hours. There's not enough demand for their goods and services right at this moment, so they begin to cut hours. So people become underemployed. And the big key, guys, about the underemployed is they are employed. They're just counted as in the employed number, right? So when this happens, when businesses cut hours, certainly they're not hiring as much as they used to. So certainly it's becoming harder to find a job, but the unemployment rate does not change in regards to those people. I'm not saying that in this phase, the unemployment rate doesn't tick up at all. I'm just saying in regards to this situation of the cutting of hours, that does not affect the U3 unemployment rate, okay? So it becomes, that's the misleading aspect, right? It becomes a little bit less reliable in telling us what's truly happening in the labor market. Now, in phase 2, guys, I'm not gonna say there's really anything too misleading here. This is where the layoffs are generally happening, and when those layoffs happen, the number of cyclically unemployed people go up, and the unemployment rate goes up, signaling that the labor market is definitely getting worse, right? So actually, I would say it's pretty accurate in this phase 2, at least conceptually. Now let's talk about this phase 3, deep into the recession. You get deep into the recession, what might happen? Well, now we're gonna get those discouraged workers, right? People who are unemployed, were actively seeking, they give up on their job search. And when somebody goes from being unemployed to being discouraged, they drop out of the labor market, they drop out of this statistic, and guess what? The unemployment rate actually goes down, signaling a healthier labor market. And certainly it's not healthier, right? Discouraged workers is actually kind of a worse state than being unemployed, okay? So again, they're going from being unemployed to being discouraged, dropping out of the labor market, dropping out of the statistic, and that actually makes the unemployment rate go down. Now, what else might happen in this phase? What also might happen is other people who have been laid off might take a job for which they are overqualified. There's that underemployment again, right? And remember, the underemployed are counted as employed. So if you take a job for which you are overqualified, guess what? You're going from being unemployed to employed, which of course would cause the unemployment rate to tick down, signaling a healthier labor market. But that's not a healthier labor market when people are taking jobs for which they are overqualified. Finally, this little fourth one, right? The beginning of the recovery. What might happen in the beginning of the recovery that might cause the unemployment rate, at least that U3 rate, to be misleading? Well, let's go back to those discouraged workers. What might they do during this time period? They might start searching again, right? They might get some hope and start searching again. And the moment they start searching again, or I should say 4 weeks into them searching again, because they have to be actively seeking for 4 weeks to be unemployed. But after they've been actively seeking for 4 weeks, so they go from discouraged to actively seeking, and once they've been actively seeking for 4 weeks, they're counted as unemployed, and guess what? The unemployment rate goes up. But this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. People are getting hopeful again and going back out there and actively searching again. And what also might happen, again, just conceptually here, is that perhaps some people that took jobs for which they're overqualified, now they're starting to see, hey, there's some good news out there, right? I might be able to find a job that actually fits my skill set. So some of the overqualified could potentially quit their job to go full-time search for a job that fits their skill set better. And of course, if that happened, they would go from being underemployed, which is employed, to being unemployed, which would cause the unemployment rate to also tick up. But this is not, again, necessarily a bad thing that people are out there trying to find jobs that actually fit their skill set. Again, this was just a conceptual way of approaching it, just so we get the definitions and understanding of how the unemployment rate may mislead us. Now, U4, U5, U6, those are also out there, also released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So what do they do, guys? Well, in U4, and by the way, it's all about the numerator, okay? The denominator is always going to be the labor force. But U4 denominator is the number of unemployed, which was U3, plus the discouraged workers. That's right. It adds in the discouraged workers. U5 takes the number of unemployed, plus discouraged workers, plus any others that are marginally attached. Any other people that were seeking in the last 12 months, but aren't seeking now, aren't actively seeking. Just one example could be somebody that got so frustrated they decided to go to school because they couldn't find a job and were frustrated at trying to find a job. They decide, you know what, I guess I've got to go back to school, okay? So they become a full-time student, and guess what? They drop out of the labor force as far as U3, but again, U5 is going to count them. So again, U5 is the number of unemployed plus discouraged workers plus all others that are marginally attached. Discouraged workers are marginally attached, and there's some others like that full-time student that I just described. Now, U6, number of unemployed, you probably guess it, right? Number of unemployed plus the discouraged workers plus all others that are marginally attached plus the underemployed, especially the ones that are working part-time because of economic reasons, meaning they want to work more but are just not able to work more because the economy doesn't support more hours. So again, U6, that's our broadest measure, right, of the unemployed. It counts the number of unemployed, or the number unemployed, the number that are actively seeking, plus the discouraged workers, plus the all others that are marginally attached, plus the underemployed, at least in regards to the ones that are working part-time that want to work more, our broadest measure of unemployment. Again, this is the one we teach in the macro classes. This is the one that's reported in the news, but there are these other ones, right? And what we're really focusing on is why might this be misleading, right? And you can understand why maybe we should want to look at the U3, the U4, the U5, and the U6. Boy, I hope that made sense to you. We'll see you in the next video.